The morning sun barely touched the marble floors of the DeMarco mansion when Alicia Carter slipped through the service entrance, her fingers trembling as they reached for the door handle. The bandage on her left cheek felt like it was burning, announcing her secret to anyone who looked closely enough. She pressed her hand against it, willing it to become invisible, knowing that was impossible. She'd been working as a maid in Anthony DeMarco's estate for 6 months now, and in all that time, she'd perfected the art of being unseen. It was the only way to survive in a house ruled by one of the most powerful mafia bosses on the East Coast. Stay quiet. Keep your head down. Never make eye contact. Those were the rules that kept people like her alive in a world like his. But today, everything felt different. Today, she carried more than just her usual fear. Today, she carried evidence. If you've ever had to hide something that could change everything, you know exactly what Alicia was feeling in that moment. The weight of a secret can be heavier than any burden. But what happens when the most dangerous man you know discovers the truth you've been desperately trying to hide? Stay with us, because what unfolds next will show you that sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. And if this story resonates with you, hit that subscribe button, because we share powerful stories like this every week. Alicia had learned to move through the mansion like a shadow. At 28, she'd already mastered more survival skills than most people learned in a lifetime. Growing up in South Brooklyn, raising her 7-year-old son Marcus alone, working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads, all of it had taught her that invisibility was the greatest shield a woman like her could have. The DeMarco mansion was unlike anything she'd ever known. 23 rooms of Italian marble, imported silk and crystal chandeliers that cost more than she'd make in 10 years. She cleaned these rooms every day, her dark brown hands scrubbing surfaces that gleamed like mirrors, her natural curls pulled back in a tight bun that gave her headaches by noon. But the pay was good, better than good. It was enough to finally afford Marcus's asthma medication without choosing between that and groceries. Anthony DeMarco himself was a mystery, wrapped in expensive suits and deadly calm. She'd seen him maybe a dozen times in 6 months, always from a distance, always with that aura of controlled violence that made her stomach clench. At 32, he commanded respect with just his presence. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that seemed to see everything, and a way of moving that reminded her of a predator circling prey. She'd heard the whispers from the other staff, how he'd taken over the family business at 25 after his father's murder, how he'd eliminated 3 rival families in one brutal month, how people who crossed him simply disappeared. Maria, the head housekeeper, had warned her on her first day, "Mr. DeMarco values 2 things above all else, loyalty and discretion. Give him both and you'll be fine. Betray either and—" She hadn't needed to finish that sentence, so Alicia kept her head down and her secrets closer. The most important secret being that she'd left Marcus with Mrs. Chen next door this morning with strict instructions not to open the door for anyone, not even his own father. 3 days ago, Derek, Marcus's father and Alicia's biggest mistake, had found them. After 2 years of blessed silence, he'd shown up at their tiny apartment, drunk and angry about money he claimed she owed him, when she'd refused to let him in, when she'd threatened to call the police. He'd grabbed her face and slammed it against the doorframe. "You think you're too good for me now?" he'd snarled, his breath reeking of whiskey. "You think that fancy house you clean makes you better than where you came from?" She'd managed to lock the door before he could do worse, but the damage was done. The bruise bloomed dark purple against her brown skin, and she'd covered it with the largest bandage she could find at the drugstore. She'd called in sick the next 2 days, terrified of losing this job that meant everything to her and Marcus. But bills didn't care about bruises. So here she was, praying no one would notice, praying she could keep this job just a little longer until she figured out what to do about Derek. She was polishing the silverware in the formal dining room when she felt it, that electric charge in the air that meant Anthony DeMarco was near. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she kept her face turned away, focusing intensely on a fork that was already gleaming. "Miss Carter." His voice was deep, cultured, with just a hint of the Italian accent he'd inherited from his grandfather. She froze, fork suspended in mid-polish. "Yes, Mr. DeMarco." She kept her voice steady, kept her bandaged cheek angled away from him. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." It wasn't a request. It was never a request with men like him. Slowly, heart pounding so hard she thought he must hear it, Alicia turned to face her employer for the first time in 6 months. He stood in the doorway, 6 feet of controlled power in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. His dark eyes swept over her face, and she watched as they stopped, fixed, narrowed on the white bandage covering her left cheek. The silence stretched like a rubber band pulled to breaking point. "What happened to your face?" His tone hadn't changed, but something in the air shifted, became dangerous. I fell, Mr. DeMarco. Clumsy of me." "It's nothing." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but it was the lie women like her had been telling since the beginning of time. He moved closer, each step deliberate, and she fought the urge to back away. When he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody, he stopped. "You fell." It wasn't a question. It was him letting her know he didn't believe her for a second. "Yes, sir." His jaw tightened. "Remove the bandage." Everything was about to change in that moment, and Alicia knew it. Sometimes the truth we try so desperately to hide has a way of revealing itself at exactly the moment when we're least prepared. What happened next would set in motion events that no one could have predicted. Keep watching, because Anthony DeMarco's reaction was unlike anything anyone expected. And if you're invested in this story, show us by clicking that like button. It helps us share more powerful narratives like this one. "Mr. DeMarco, remove it." There was steel in his voice now, the kind that made hardened criminals confess to crimes they didn't commit. "Or I'll do it myself." With trembling fingers, Alicia reached for the bandage. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but where would she go? This man owned half the city. If he wanted answers, he'd get them one way or another. The adhesive pulled at her skin as she slowly peeled away the bandage. She couldn't look at him, couldn't bear to see the disgust or the pity that would surely be there. The bruise was spectacular, a violent burst of purple and blue that spread from her cheekbone to her jaw, the edges yellowing as it started to heal. The silence was worse than any words could have been. When she finally dared to glance up, what she saw in Anthony DeMarco's face made her breath catch. It wasn't pity, it wasn't disgust. It was rage, pure, cold, lethal rage that transformed his handsome features into something terrifying. Who? One word, spoken so quietly it was almost a whisper, but carrying the weight of an execution order. "Mr. DeMarco, please, it's not—" "Who did this to you?" He stepped closer, and she watched his hands clench into fists before he deliberately relaxed them. "Tell me his name." "I can't." Her voice broke on the words. I can't. Miss Carter." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tilted her chin so their eyes met. "I asked you a question. In my world, that requires an answer." "He's nobody," she whispered. "Just someone from my past. It doesn't matter. It matters." Something flickered in his dark eyes, something almost human beneath all that controlled violence. "It matters because you work in my house, under my protection, and someone marked you while you were under my protection." "I don't need protection." The words came out fiercer than she intended. "I've been taking care of myself and my son for years. I'll handle it." She regretted the words the instant they left her mouth. She'd broken the first rule. She'd revealed information about her personal life, given him a piece of herself that could be used against her. His expression changed. "You have a son." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway, unable to take back what she'd already said. "How old?" 7. "And his father? The man who did this?" Anthony gestured to her face. Alicia's throat tightened. Marcus's father hasn't been in the picture for 2 years. Until 3 days ago." What changed 3 days ago? She wanted to lie, wanted to spin some story that would make all of this go away. But something in his eyes, some strange combination of authority and genuine concern, made the truth spill out. "He found out where we live, showed up drunk, demanding money. When I wouldn't let him in, when I told him I'd call the police, She touched her cheek gently. This happened. Anthony's jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jump. His name. Mr. DeMarco. His name. Derek. Derek Williams. The name felt like poison in her mouth. But please, I'm begging you. Just let it go. I'll handle it. I'll get a restraining order. A restraining order. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. A piece of paper. You think that will stop a man who's already shown he's willing to hurt you? It's all I have. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. I can't have you involved in this. I can't owe you anything. Don't you understand? People like me, we survive by staying invisible, by not drawing attention, by not... She gestured helplessly between them. By not getting involved with people like you. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, to her utter shock, he smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad. Miss Carter, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen very carefully. He stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes never left hers. You became my concern the moment you accepted employment in this house. Every person who works for me, who enters my home, who trusts me to provide for them, they are mine to protect. That is not negotiable. It is not optional. It is the code I live by. I don't want to be anyone's responsibility, she whispered. Too late. He pulled out his phone. Marco? I need a full background check on a Derek Williams, South Brooklyn area, girlfriend and 7-year-old son named Marcus. I want his address, his employment, his habits, and his criminal record on my desk in 1 hour. Mr. DeMarco, please. He held up one hand, still on the phone. Also, I need security detail to... He looked at her questioningly. She closed her eyes in defeat. 2247 Cypress Avenue, 3rd floor. 2247 Cypress Avenue, 3rd floor, discreet. I want them watching but invisible, and I want surveillance on the kids' school. He ended the call and looked at her. What school does Marcus attend? Lincoln Elementary. She felt like she was watching her carefully constructed life unravel thread by thread. You can't do this. You can't just insert yourself into our lives. Watch me. He moved to the door, then paused. You're taking the rest of the week off, with full pay. I need this job. Panic clawed at her throat. Please, Mr. DeMarco, don't fire me. I'll work harder. He turned back and something in his expression softened. I'm not firing you, Ms. Carter. I'm making sure you have time to heal and to get your son settled. And I'm making sure that the man who hurt you understands that he made a very grave mistake. What are you going to do to him? His smile was cold as winter. Nothing permanent. Unless he's stupid enough to come near you again, then... He shrugged eloquently. Then he'll wish I'd been merciful the first time. And just like that, Alicia Carter's carefully controlled world had been turned upside down. She'd spent years building walls to protect herself and Marcus, and in one conversation, Anthony DeMarco had walked right through them as if they were made of paper. But was this protection or possession? Was this care or control? The line was about to become very blurred, and what happened next would challenge everything. Both of them thought they knew about power, protection, and the walls we build around our hearts. Don't miss what happens next. And if you believe everyone deserves someone willing to fight for them, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. 3 days passed in a strange kind of suspended reality. Alicia stayed in her apartment, watching Marcus color pictures at their tiny kitchen table, jumping every time she heard footsteps in the hallway. But Derek never came. Not once. On the second day, she'd found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was 2 weeks' salary, in cash, and a note in bold masculine handwriting, for anything you and Marcus need. A.D. She'd stared at that money for a full hour, tears burning her eyes. It was more than money. It was a statement. It was him reminding her that she was under his protection now, whether she wanted to be or not. That evening her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Carter. Anthony's voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. How are you and Marcus doing? We're... Fine. Mr. DeMarco, about the money, keep it. Consider it a signing bonus. For what? For agreeing to let me keep you both safe. She sank onto her worn couch, suddenly exhausted. You didn't give me much choice. No, he agreed quietly. I didn't. But I'm calling to give you one now. Derek Williams is currently in police custody. Turns out he had an outstanding warrant for assault from 2 years ago. Funny how these things come to light when someone takes the time to look. Her heart stuttered. You got him arrested? I simply made sure the proper authorities were aware of his location. What they did with that information was up to them. She could hear the smile in his voice. He'll be arraigned tomorrow. The prosecutor handling his case happens to be very thorough. I imagine he'll be away for quite some time. Why are you doing this? The question burst out of her. You don't know me. Marcus and I are nothing to you. Why do you care? The silence on the other end stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, my mother was a maid. His voice was different now, quieter, more reflective. She worked for a family in Manhattan. Rich, powerful people who treated her like furniture. When my father's business associates came around asking questions, threatening her to get to him, her employers didn't lift a finger. They told her it wasn't their problem, that she'd brought her troubles to their door and should leave. Alicia's breath caught. She came home bleeding from a broken arm one night. I was 8 years old. My father was in prison. We had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. That night I promised myself that if I ever had power, if I ever had the ability to protect people, I would never turn my back the way those people turned their backs on my mother. What happened to her? Alicia whispered. She survived, got stronger, learned to fight back. He paused. But she never should have had to. So when I see a woman in my house working hard, taking care of her son and someone hurts her, that's not a choice for me, Ms. Carter. That's a promise I made a long time ago. Tears were streaming down Alicia's face now. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come back to work when you're ready. Say you'll let me know if you or Marcus need anything. That's all I ask. Okay. She wiped at her eyes. Okay, I can do that. Good. She could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Oh, and Ms. Carter, the security detail will remain on your building and Marcus's school. Invisible but present. This is not negotiable. Before she could protest, he'd hung up. 2 weeks later, when Alicia returned to work, she found Anthony in his study, working through a stack of papers. He looked up when she knocked hesitantly on the open door. Ms. Carter. His face changed somehow when he saw her. The hardness softened just slightly around the edges. You look better. The bruise had faded to a yellowish shadow that she'd covered with makeup. I am better, thank you for everything. He set down his pen. I did what anyone with a conscience should do. That's not true, and you know it. She stepped into the room, nervous but determined. Most people in your position wouldn't have cared. You could have just fired me to avoid the complications. Then they're not worthy of the power they hold. He stood, moving around the desk. Power without responsibility is just tyranny. Something about the way he looked at her made her heart skip. This man, this dangerous, complicated man, had shown her more genuine care than almost anyone else in her life. I want to pay you back, she said suddenly. The money, the help with Derek, everything. I need to pay you back. His expression hardened. Absolutely not. But I can't just... You can and you will. He moved closer, and she forced herself not to step back. This is not a debt, Ms. Carter. This is not something you owe me. This is me doing what's right because I have the power to do it, understand? She swallowed hard. I'm not used to people helping without expecting something in return. Get used to it. His voice softened slightly. You're under my protection now. That means something in my world. Over the following weeks, Alicia discovered exactly what that meant. It meant Marcus being accepted into a better school, one with an excellent asthma program, with a full scholarship that appeared out of nowhere. It meant her ancient car being replaced by a newer, safer model that mysteriously showed up with her name on the registration. It meant never worrying about having enough food in the refrigerator, because a grocery delivery appeared every week without her ordering it. It also meant noticing things, like how Anthony always seemed to be in whatever room she was cleaning, working quietly, but watching her with those dark, intense eyes. Like how he started asking about Marcus, what he liked, what he was learning in school. whether his asthma was under control, like how one day she came to work and found a state-of-the-art nebulizer sitting on her cleaning cart with a note, "Better than the one at the clinic. For Marcus, AD." She'd cried right there in the hallway, clutching that note like it was a lifeline. Maria, the head housekeeper, pulled her aside one afternoon. "I've worked for the DeMarco family for 15 years, the older woman said quietly. "I've never seen Mr. Anthony look at anyone the way he looks at you. Be careful, Chica. That man's world is dangerous, but his heart? That's the most dangerous thing of all." Alicia knew she should be scared, should put up walls, keep her distance. Remember that men like Anthony DeMarco lived in a different world, one of violence and secrets and moral codes that normal people couldn't understand. But when she thought about how safe she felt for the first time in years, how Marcus was thriving, how Derek's court date kept getting continued with more charges being added each time, charges that would keep him in prison for years, she couldn't quite make herself care about should. Lines were being crossed that neither of them had planned to cross. Alicia was supposed to be just another employee, and Anthony was supposed to be just another boss. But life doesn't care about supposed to, does it? When protection turns to care and care turns to something deeper, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is admit what you're really feeling. And that moment was coming faster than either of them realized. Stay with us. This story is about to take a turn that will change everything. If you're feeling this emotional journey, let us know in the comments below. It happened on a Tuesday, exactly 2 months after the day Anthony first saw her bandage. Alicia was cleaning the third-floor library, her favorite room in the mansion, filled with leather-bound books and the smell of old paper and expensive scotch. She was reaching for a high shelf when the ladder shifted beneath her. For one terrifying moment, she felt herself falling backward, her arms windmilling uselessly. Then strong hands caught her, steadied her, pulled her against a solid chest that smelled of cologne and danger. "I've got you." Anthony's voice was rough against her ear. "You're safe." She should have pulled away, should have thanked him professionally and put proper distance between them. Instead, she found herself turning in his arms, her hands resting against his chest, her breath coming too fast. He was so close she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body, could hear his breathing shift and deepen as he looked down at her. Alicia. Her name on his lips sent electricity down her spine. He'd never used her first name before. "I'm trying very hard to be honorable here." "Honorable?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Honorable." His hand came up to cup her cheek, the one that had been bruised, now healed but still tender in her memory. "You work for me. You're vulnerable. Taking advantage of that would make me no better than the man who hurt you." "I don't feel vulnerable right now." The words escaped before she could stop them. I don't know what I feel." His thumb traced her cheekbone, gentle as a prayer. "What do you want, Alicia? Tell me, because I need to know if I'm reading this wrong, if I'm seeing something that isn't there. I don't know what's there." Honesty felt like jumping off a cliff. "I know you've been kind to me and Marcus. I know I feel safe for the first time in years. I know that when I see you, my heart does this stupid thing where it speeds up and I can't quite catch my breath. But I also know that your world is dangerous, and I have a son to protect, and getting involved with someone like you would be reckless." He smiled slightly. "Dangerous, complicated beyond measure, all of that." "You're right." But he didn't let her go. "Getting involved with me would bring complications into your life that you don't need. My enemies would see you as leverage. My lifestyle would put you and Marcus at risk. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to keep this professional." "Yes." Her heart was breaking even as she agreed. "The smart thing. The smart thing." He leaned closer, his lips almost brushing her forehead. "But I stopped doing smart things the moment I decided to make you my concern. The moment I saw that bruise and felt something break inside me that I didn't know could break. The moment I realized I couldn't go a day without knowing you and Marcus were safe. Anthony." His name felt intimate, forbidden. "What are we doing?" "I don't know." His honesty mirrored hers. "But I know I can't keep pretending I don't care." That you're just another employee, that I don't look for you every day when I come home, that I don't lie awake at night thinking about what kind of father would abandon someone like Marcus, what kind of man would hurt someone like you. You can't fix what's broken in me. Tears burned her eyes. I'm not some damsel in distress who needs rescuing. I know. He pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You're brilliant and brave, and you've survived things that would break lesser people. I don't want to fix you, Alicia. You're not broken. I just want... He paused, seeming to struggle with words. I just want to be someone you can lean on. Someone who has your back. Someone who makes your life easier instead of harder. And if I want more than that? The question slipped out before she could stop it. His eyes darkened. Then we have a problem, because more than that would mean you accepting all of me. The good, the bad, and the absolutely terrifying. It would mean Marcus growing up in a world where his mother is connected to someone like me. It would mean danger and complications and a life that's nothing like the normal one you've tried to build. I haven't had normal in a very long time, she whispered. Maybe I stopped wanting normal the day you noticed my bandage and decided to care. He made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and a prayer. Alicia, if we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I don't do casual. I don't do halfway. If you're mine completely. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. That should terrify me. She reached up, touching his jaw. Why doesn't that terrify me? Maybe because you know I mean it. His hand covered hers. Maybe because for the first time someone is offering you exactly what you've been too afraid to ask for. And what's that? Absolute devotion. His lips brushed her knuckles. Complete protection. Someone who will burn down the world before letting anyone hurt you or Marcus again. She should have been scared. Should have recognized the obsessive edge to his words, the possessive intensity in his eyes. But all she felt was safe. Wanted. Cherished in a way she'd never experienced before. I have conditions, she heard herself say. Name them. Marcus comes first. Always. If this, whatever this is, ever puts him at risk, we stop. Agreed. What else? I keep my job. I don't want to be some kept woman. I want to work, to have my own money, to maintain my independence. His expression softened. You never have to worry about money again, but if working matters to you, then you work. What else? You teach me. She straightened her shoulders. About your world. About how to stay safe in it, about what Marcus needs to know as he gets older. If we're doing this, I need to understand what I'm getting into. Done. He cupped her face in both hands. Anything else? Just. She took a shaky breath. Just don't break my heart. I've been hurt enough. I can't. I can't survive it if you... Never. The word was a vow. I will never hurt you, Alicia. I will never abandon you or Marcus. I will never make you regret trusting me. This I swear on everything I am. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. His lips were gentle but insistent, asking permission even as he took what he wanted. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and she felt him smile against her mouth. So that's a yes? He murmured between kisses. That's a we'll see. But she was smiling too. Don't think this means I'm going to stop being cautious. I would be disappointed if you did. He rested his forehead against hers. Cautious is what kept you and Marcus alive all this time. But now you don't have to be cautious alone. And with that kiss, everything changed. The maid and the Mafia boss had crossed a line that society said shouldn't be crossed. That logic said was too dangerous, that fear said would end in disaster. But sometimes the bravest thing we can do is take a chance on someone who sees us, truly sees us, and chooses to stay anyway. What happened next would test them both in ways they never imagined. Keep watching to see how their story unfolds, and don't forget to share this with someone who believes in the power of unexpected love. The next 3 months were like living in a dream Alicia was afraid to wake up from. Anthony insisted she and Marcus move into one of his properties, a beautiful townhouse in a safe neighborhood with excellent schools nearby. She'd protested, of course, until he'd pointed out that her tiny apartment with its broken security door and questionable heating was more dangerous than anything in his world. "You want to keep your independence?" he'd said. "Fine. Pay me rent. Whatever you think is fair. But Marcus deserves better than that apartment, and you know it." She'd agreed to pay $500 a month, which she knew was absurdly low for a 3-bedroom townhouse in this neighborhood, but he'd accepted it without argument. Small victories, she told herself. Marcus took to their new life with the adaptability of childhood. He loved his new school, loved having his own room, loved the fact that Mr. Tony came by most evenings to have dinner with them. What he didn't know, what Alicia worked hard to keep from him, was exactly who Mr. Tony was or what he did for a living. "He's a businessman," she'd explained when Marcus asked. "He helps people solve problems." That was technically true, even if the problems Tony solved often involved making bad people disappear. One evening, about 4 months into their relationship, Alicia was making dinner when Marcus rushed into the kitchen, his inhaler clutched in one hand. Mom, I can't breathe right." Her heart stopped. She grabbed the nebulizer Tony had given them, her hands shaking as she set it up. Marcus was wheezing badly, his little chest heaving with effort. "It's okay, baby, we're going to fix this. Just breathe slowly, like we practiced." But it wasn't working. The nebulizer wasn't helping. His lips were starting to turn blue. Terror clawed at her throat as she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Then, without thinking, she called Tony. He answered on the first ring. "Alicia, what's wrong?" "It's Marcus. Asthma attack. Bad one. Ambulance is coming, but I'm scared, Tony. I'm so scared. I'm 10 minutes away. Stay calm. Keep him breathing. I'm coming." He made it in 7 minutes, bursting through the door just as the paramedics arrived. While they worked on Marcus, Tony pulled Alicia against his chest, his arms like steel bands holding her together when she wanted to fall apart. "He'll be okay," he murmured into her hair. "He's strong, like his mother." At the hospital, while the doctors stabilized Marcus, Tony made calls. Within an hour, the best pediatric pulmonologist in the state was consulting on Marcus's case. By morning, they had a new treatment plan that would change everything. Alicia watched all of this happen, watched Tony move heaven and earth for her son, and felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just protection anymore. This wasn't just care. This was love. The real, deep, terrifying kind that changed everything. When Marcus was finally sleeping peacefully, his breathing steady and strong, she found Tony in the waiting room, his head in his hands, his expensive suit wrinkled for the first time since she'd known him. Tony. He looked up and she saw it in his eyes, the same terror she'd felt, the same desperate love. "I thought—" His voice cracked. "When you called, when I heard the fear in your voice, I thought I might lose both of you." She sat beside him, taking his hand. "Both of us. You and Marcus." He turned to face her fully. "Somewhere along the way, he stopped being just your son. He became mine. In my heart, in the ways that matter, he's mine. And if something had happened to him—" Tears streamed down her face. "Tony, you can't just claim my son." "I know." He pulled her against him. "I know I have no rights, no claim except what you give me. But Alicia, I love that little boy, like he was my own blood. I would die for him, kill for him, move heaven and earth to keep him safe. If that makes me presumptuous, if that makes me overstepping, then I'm sorry. But I can't change how I feel. I don't want you to change." She pulled back to look at him. "I want you to understand what this means. If you're claiming Marcus as yours, if you're taking on that responsibility, you can't walk away when it gets hard. You can't decide one day that this life is too complicated or that you want something easier. I would never." His hands framed her face. "Alicia, listen to me. I don't do anything halfway. When I commit, it's forever. You and Marcus, you're my family now. My responsibility, yes, but also my joy, my purpose. The reason I come home every night instead of sleeping at the office. The reason I'm trying to build something legitimate, something I won't be ashamed for Marcus to know about when he's older. You're changing your business." She'd heard rumors from the household staff. Something about Tony transitioning away from the family's illegal operations into legitimate enterprises. I'm trying. He looked tired suddenly, older than his 32 years. It's slow, complicated and dangerous because not everyone in my organization wants to go legitimate. But yes, I'm changing. For Marcus, so he never has to know his stepfather is a criminal. And for you, so you never have to worry that I'll be taken away from you both. Stepfather. The word hung in the air between them. His expression became guarded. Too fast? Maybe. She managed a shaky smile. But also, maybe not. Maybe the fact that I can imagine it means something. It means everything. He kissed her softly. I'm not going anywhere, Alicia. Not now, not ever. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm here, you, me and Marcus. That's my family. That's what matters. The graduation ceremony for Marcus's third-grade class was held in the school auditorium. Alicia sat in the audience, her hand clasped tightly in Tony's, watching her son receive an award for perfect attendance and academic excellence. That's my boy, Tony whispered, pride shining in his eyes. Our boy, Alicia corrected softly. He looked at her, surprise and joy warring on his face. Our boy? He asked me last week if he could call you Dad. Tears threatened, but these were happy tears. I told him he'd have to ask you himself. As if on cue, Marcus bounded over to them after the ceremony, his certificate clutched in both hands. Mr. Tony, did you see? I got an award. I saw, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Tony crouched down to Marcus's level. That's going right up on the refrigerator. Marcus bit his lip, suddenly shy. Mr. Tony, can I ask you something? Anything. Well, you're here all the time. You have dinner with us, and you help with my homework, and you came to the hospital when I was sick, and you do all the dad stuff. He took a deep breath. Can I call you Dad? 'Cause it feels like you're my dad, even though I know you're not really. Tony's eyes went suspiciously bright. Marcus, I would be honored if you called me Dad, more honored than I can possibly express. Really? Marcus's face lit up like sunrise. Really? Tony pulled the boy into a fierce hug. I love you, kid. So much. I love you too, Dad. Alicia covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to sob. Tony reached out with his free arm and pulled her into the hug, the three of them standing there in the emptying auditorium, a family forged not by blood, but by choice. That night, after Marcus was asleep, Tony and Alicia stood on the balcony of their townhouse looking at the city lights. I never imagined this, Alicia said softly. 6 months ago, I was terrified of losing my job. Now I have a home, a family, a future I never dared dream of. The moment I saw that bandage on your face, Tony replied, something shifted in me. I couldn't have explained it then. But I can now. I saw a woman who was strong enough to survive, brave enough to protect her child, and too proud to ask for help, even when she desperately needed it. I saw myself in you, or rather, I saw my mother, and I knew I had to do something. So you did. So I did. He turned to face her. I started by protecting you. Then I started caring for you. Then I started loving you. And somewhere along the way, you and Marcus became the most important things in my world. She leaned into him. I love you too, even though you're bossy and overprotective and you have a tendency to solve problems by throwing money at them. He laughed. Guilty as charged. But you're also kind and gentle with Marcus, and you've never once made me feel less than you. You've treated me as an equal, even when we both know you could have used your power to control me. Power without respect is just tyranny, he quoted his own words from months ago, and I could never disrespect the woman who showed me what real strength looks like. So what happens now? She asked. Where do we go from here? He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Alicia's breath caught. Now, he said, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring, I ask you to make it official, to let me be not just Marcus's stepfather, but your husband. To build a life together that's nothing like what either of us came from, and everything we both deserve. Tony. I know it's fast. I know there are still risks, still complications. I know my past isn't completely behind me yet, but I also know that every day with you and Marcus is better than any day before, and I want every day after to be ours. Will you marry me? Alicia Carter. She thought about that day 6 months ago, standing in the dining room with a bandage on her face, terrified of losing her job. She thought about the journey since then, the fear, the trust, the gradual opening of her heart to a man who should have been all wrong but was somehow perfectly right. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." When he slid the ring onto her finger, it felt like the ending of one story and the beginning of another. The maid and the Mafia boss, the woman who survived and the man who protected, together they'd built something that defied every expectation, broke every rule, and proved that sometimes the most unlikely love stories are the ones that last forever. Inside, Marcus slept peacefully, safe and loved, with parents who would move heaven and earth to keep him that way. And in the morning, they would wake up as a family, bound not by blood or obligation, but by the kind of love that conquers fear and turns strangers into home. And so Alicia Carter's story comes full circle, from a woman hiding her bruises and her fear to someone who found not just protection, but genuine love in the most unexpected place. Her story reminds us that sometimes the people we least expect to care are the ones who change our lives forever. That real strength isn't about never needing help. It's about having the courage to accept it when it's offered with genuine care. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of unexpected love and second chances, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear that their story isn't over yet. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought. We read every single one. And remember, the right person won't just accept your past, they'll help you build a better future. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.